I still remember the way my mom stood in the hallway that night, backlit by the glow of the bathroom light, holding a mug of tea like she was about to offer me comfort instead of drop a bomb on my future. My name's Peter. I was 19 back then, a senior in high school, obsessed with street food videos and planning to open my own kitchen one day. I had just finished polishing the last section of my scholarship essay when she knocked. Not a frantic knock, not a hesitant one, just a soft, rhythmic rap, like she had something delicate to say. And I should have known. My mom never knocked unless something was wrong. We weren't rich, far from it, but I'd worked my butt off since sophomore year, bagging groceries, fixing bikes, helping Mr. Dunley at the mechanic shop during the summer just to pitch into what I thought was my college fund. And yeah, my parents matched it whenever they could. I was proud of that fund. It wasn't just money. It was proof. Proof that I could claw my way out, that I didn't have to end up stuck in our tiny Illinois town living paycheck to paycheck like most people I knew. My mom always said I was the resilient one, which sounded like a compliment until I got older and realized it was her way of saying, "You'll survive if we mess up again." Anyway, that night, she opened the door without waiting for me to say anything, walked in, and sat on the edge of my bed like this was a normal mother-son chat. She didn't ask about my essay or how I felt about the upcoming deadline. She just looked tired, older than usual. Her hand reached for mine, and I remember how cold it was. And then she said it, calm as anything. "We used your college fund to pay off your sister's credit card debt. She's been through a lot, Peter. You know that." I blinked. That was it. No build-up, no apology, no tears. Like it was a done deal, and I'd just nod and say, "Oh, okay. Thanks for letting me know." She followed it up with one of those long, heavy hugs, like she was doing me a favor. Then she whispered, "You'll find another way. You always do." I didn't hug her back. I didn't say a word. I just sat there, fists clenched, heart sinking, staring at my laptop screen as the words I'd spent hours pouring my soul into started to blur. I didn't cry. That came later, after she left, after the door clicked shut, after I realized the account, the one labeled Peter's Dreams, on our shared banking app, had been emptied without even a heads up. That was the night something inside me shut off. Not out of rage, not even bitterness, just a cold clarity. I wasn't going to be rescued. I wasn't going to be helped. I was a tool, the dependable one, the fallback guy, the resilient one. And the worst part? My sister, Rachel, had already done this before. I just convinced myself it was different this time. Rachel was 3 years older than me. She used to be cool when we were kids. Used to let me hang out with her and her friends and sneak me Halloween candy when Mom said I had enough. But once she hit high school, things changed. She got into dumb arguments with Mom, started skipping classes, dated guys who drove loud cars, and never looked anyone in the eye. Then came the debt. The first time it happened, I was 15. My parents drained some emergency savings to help her get back on her feet. She promised to pay them back. She never did. That time, they called it a family emergency. This time, it was just my turn to sacrifice. I didn't say a word to Rachel for days. Not because I was giving her the silent treatment, but because I didn't trust what would come out of my mouth. She barely acknowledged me anyway. She had this way of pretending nothing ever happened, like money didn't just vanish into thin air, like everyone around her was supposed to absorb the consequences of her messes. A week later, I skipped dinner. I stayed in my room, headphones on, scrolling through job listings in other states. I wasn't going to college, not with no money and no backup, so I figured I might as well make a new plan. I found one at a restaurant 2 states away, in Missouri. It wasn't fancy, just a roadside place with solid reviews and an owner who sounded desperate enough to hire someone over the phone. I told him I could start that weekend. He said sure, and offered me a cot in the back room if I didn't mind the smell of grease and pickles. I didn't. I left without saying goodbye. I packed a duffel bag, left a note that said, "Don't call me unless it's an emergency," and took the early morning bus. I remember sitting by the window, watching the fog roll over the highway, feeling more relieved than scared. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. I figured maybe if I built something on my own, far away, I could finally stop being the one who had to figure it out for everyone else. For the first year, I didn't hear much from them. A few texts from Mom. Nothing emotional, just little guilt traps like, "Hope you're doing well," or "We miss you," followed by pictures of Rachel at brunch or some family barbecue. I never responded. And then, like clockwork, came the first real ask. Mom messaged me. Hey, sweetie, Rachel's having a hard time again. Could you send a little something? You know she's not good with money, and you've always been so responsible. I didn't even dignify it with a reply. That was the first of many. Little pokes, little nudges. Requests disguised as love. Eventually, Rachel reached out too, as if she hadn't stolen my future, as if I was just being dramatic. One of her texts literally said, "You're still mad?" That was years ago. Grow up. I almost laughed. Years ago? It had barely been 18 months. But here's the thing. While they were pretending nothing happened, I was grinding. I started as a dishwasher, then prep cook, then line cook. I lived in that greasy little back room for 6 months before the manager helped me find a studio apartment with roaches and thin walls, but I didn't care. Every paycheck was a brick. Every night shift was another layer in the wall I was building between me and them. And somewhere in that chaos, I found clarity. The kitchen was where I belonged. Not just because I liked the rhythm of it, but because it was the first place in my life where hard work actually got noticed. Respected. I started building my own recipes. I took every boring shift no one wanted. I learned from the older guys, watched videos at 2 a.m., wrote flavor notes in the margins of my grocery receipts. When the owner got sick and stepped back, I offered to run the place. He laughed at first. I was just some kid, but I showed him what I could do. I revamped the menu, brought in new suppliers, doubled the weekend traffic. By year 3, I was running the kitchen like it was mine. Then came the article. A local food blogger stopped in one night and raved about the smoked chili chicken tacos I'd just rolled out. The piece got picked up by a regional magazine, which led to a spot in a national write-up about 10 underrated roadside restaurants in the Midwest. And just like that, things snowballed. Investors called. I negotiated a deal. A few months later, the restaurant officially reopened under my name, Peter's Smokehouse. That's when the invite came. It was cream-colored and expensive-looking, like it was meant to be framed. Rachel's wedding, downtown Chicago, fancy venue, a full itinerary. And in the top right corner, scrawled in a sticky note from my mom. Hope you can come. We'd love to have you. Rachel's stressed about the catering bill. Maybe you could pitch in? Love you. I stared at it for a long time. Not angry. Not sad. Just stunned that they still saw me as a lifeline. As someone to be used. They hadn't changed at all. But I had. So I wrote something back. Not a letter. Not a text. Just one page. One clean page, with a clipping of the Forbes feature about my restaurant paperclip to it. Underneath it, I signed it, still finding my way. And that was it. I sealed it, sent it, and waited. But that wasn't the end. A week later, I got a text from my cousin Lauren. She and I weren't super close growing up, but she was the only one in the family who ever spoke to me like I wasn't disposable. She worked in nonprofit legal aid out in Milwaukee, smart, sharp-tongued, always cutting through family drama with dry sarcasm and zero tolerance for nonsense. So when she messaged me, it was short and loaded. I know you're not going, but you should see this. Attached was a screenshot. A group chat, bridal squad, with a long paragraph from Rachel, written like a wedding day update, but layered with venom. So Peter, the chef, finally responded. Not coming, but of course he made it about himself. Sent me a magazine article like he's some celebrity now. Didn't even say congrats or RSVP, just signed it with that pretentious little note like he's in a movie or something. Whatever. I don't need his pity or his overpriced barbecue money. He always thinks he's better than everyone. He ran away, and now he's acting like we wronged him. I'm not even mad. It's just sad. Honestly, he should be grateful we bailed him out all those years. Grateful. That word hit me harder than anything else in that message. Grateful. Not only had they justified stealing my future, they'd rewritten it in their heads as if they'd helped me by taking what was mine. As if I should be thankful they gave me the chance to grow by robbing me blind. I couldn't even tell if it was ignorance or just pure audacity. But either way, it was the first time I felt something hotter than cold detachment. It was rage, and it didn't stop there. Lauren called me that night. You didn't hear this from me, she said. But your mom and Rachel are telling people you backed out of paying for the catering last minute. That you offered to help but flaked. What? I asked, blinking in disbelief. Yeah, apparently, the story now is that you promised a few grand and then ghosted. They're making you out to be the petty one. Classic Peter, runs when things get tough. That's the quote going around. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there on the edge of my couch, staring at the faded recipe board I kept pinned above my little desk. That board used to keep me focused. Now it was a blur. How many people are they telling this to? I finally asked. Lauren hesitated. Enough. Extended family. Friends. Church people. You know how they are. It'll grow legs. And it did. Over the next few weeks, I got a few strange messages on Facebook. Distant cousins I hadn't spoken to in years saying things like, "Hey man, I know family stuff can be complicated, but maybe you could have helped a little?" Or worse, "She's your sister. You only get one." One message from a great aunt literally said, "Money isn't everything, Peter. Sometimes forgiveness is worth more." Forgiveness? For what? I was the one who got robbed. I was the one who got tossed aside. And now I was being painted as the villain for not funding a wedding that was probably burning through 10 grand on flower arrangements alone. I tried to ignore it. Told myself it didn't matter. That the people who really knew me wouldn't buy into that narrative. But late at night, when the kitchen was quiet and the dishes were done, that's when it crept in. That itch. That voice that whispered, "They're not done taking from you. They just changed tactics." And then came the real betrayal. It was a Friday afternoon when I got a call from the bank, one I hadn't used in over 3 years. The account had been frozen due to suspicious activity. I almost hung up, thinking it was spam, until the woman on the line verified an address, my parents' address, and told me the account had been accessed using a linked device. Turns out, when I left town at 19, I hadn't properly unlinked a joint access feature my mom had set up when we opened the savings account originally. I didn't even realize she still had access to anything. I thought I had drained it myself. I had transferred everything to a new account in Missouri, or so I thought. But apparently, I'd left a dormant connected account open, one that still had around $2,700 sitting in it. Money from some back pay I never touched. Emergency savings I forgot I'd parked there during the move. It was gone. Wiped clean. I called the bank immediately. They confirmed it was pulled in 2 separate transactions over the course of the past 3 weeks. The recipient account belonged to Rachel. I don't even remember hanging up. I just remember staring at the wall, feeling like the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. That money wasn't for a car or rent. It was for something worse. Lauren confirmed it that weekend. Rachel had spent most of it on a honeymoon upgrade. "They're flying first class now," she said flatly. "All-inclusive suite. Maldives." I saw the post before she made it friends only. I didn't speak for a full minute. "Why?" I finally asked, my voice hollow. Lauren sighed. "Because she thinks she can. And because your mom enabled it, again. Don't kill the messenger, but apparently your mom signed off on the transfers. Said it was fair since you weren't going to contribute to the wedding." I leaned back in my chair, eyes closed, heart hammering in my chest. Fair. They used that word like it meant something. Like it wasn't just a shield for selfishness. It all came crashing down then. The lies, the manipulation, the way they'd twisted every part of the story to make themselves feel righteous. I saw it clearly for the first time. This wasn't just about money. This was about control, about using guilt as currency. And I had been letting them hold the pen, write the story, and cast me as the villain because I stayed silent. That silence ended that day. I didn't confront them immediately. I didn't shout. I didn't text some long-winded monologue about betrayal. I just went quiet, a different kind of quiet. Calculated. Focused. Cold. I went through old emails. Bank records. I tracked every transaction tied to that account. I called the bank again, got the login history, asked for device fingerprints. I confirmed it. The transfers came from an iPad registered under my mom's name. She had waited years, waited until I'd forgotten, and then she pounced when she thought I wouldn't notice. And worse, they weren't even hiding. Rachel had posted honeymoon photos within days of the last withdrawal. Hashtags like #deserved, #finally, and #blessed under pictures of champagne glasses clinking in the sun. I stared at that word, blessed, and felt something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. Not sadness, not bitterness. Resolve. They wanted me to be the bad guy? Fine. I'd play it. But on my terms. And this time, I wasn't just going to disappear. I started making calls. I pulled out the notebook where I'd been drafting ideas for my next venture. A second location for the restaurant, something bigger. I flipped the page and began a new section. A different kind of plan. A plan that started with a lawyer. One that would eventually end with a phone call to a certain wedding venue. But I wasn't there yet. Not quite. First, I had to let them dig a little deeper. Because the best revenge is served exactly the way they never expect. And 3 weeks later, They gave me the perfect opening. I don't think people talk enough about what it actually feels like to hit rock bottom. Not the dramatic kind you see in movies where someone shatters a glass and screams at a mirror. I mean the quiet kind. The kind where you sit in a dark room with your phone turned off, staring at nothing for hours, and realizing no one in your family is coming to check on you. Not because they don't know something's wrong, but because they do, and they don't care. Or worse, they think you deserve it. That was me. For a solid week after finding out my mom had emptied the last of my savings and funneled it to my sister's tropical honeymoon, I couldn't bring myself to step into the kitchen. My kitchen, the one I'd poured every ounce of myself into. I'd show up, nod at the crew, then lock myself in the tiny office and pretend I was doing inventory. But I wasn't. I was spiraling. Not angry, shaken. Because no matter how hard I tried to convince myself I didn't need them, that I was better off without them, the betrayal still hurt. It wasn't just the money. It was the confirmation that I never mattered to them as a person, only as a resource. A dependable ATM in an apron. I kept thinking about how my mom used to tell her friends at church that I was her miracle child. About the time she said I was her rock, while Rachel was her wildflower. It sounded poetic back then. Now it sounded like code for, he handles the hard stuff so I don't have to. I was their plan B, their fallback. Always had been. And now, I was empty. I'll admit it, there were nights I thought about quitting, selling the restaurant, disappearing for real this time, changing my name, starting over in some small town where no one knew me or my family's mess. But something stopped me, something that sat deep in my gut like an ember that refused to go out. I think it was pride, or maybe defiance. I couldn't let them be the last chapter. So I did what I always did. I got to work. I started with little things. Rearranged the spice shelf. Replaced the cracked tiles in the back hallway. Polished the metal hood until it gleamed. It was mindless work, but it kept me grounded. Tangible. Real. Unlike the twisted narratives my family had cooked up about me. Then I turned inward. I started running again, something I hadn't done since high school. At first, I could barely make it a block without gasping. But day by day, I pushed a little farther. I ran until my legs burned and the noise in my head quieted. I stopped eating takeout. Stopped doom scrolling. Cut off all social media. For the first time in years, I let myself breathe. And that's when the ideas started coming back. See, I'd always dreamed about opening a second location, something more ambitious than my smokehouse. A hybrid space. Part restaurant, part market. A place where people could not only eat but connect. Share recipes. Learn how to cook with whatever was in season. My notebook was full of half-baked sketches and menu plans, but I'd always been too caught up in survival mode to take them seriously. Now, I had nothing but time and fire, so I got to work. I reached out to one of the investors who had originally backed my smokehouse expansion, a woman named Nadia, who ran a string of successful wine bars and had always told me to dream bigger. She took my call, listened to my pitch, and told me to fly out to Austin for a meeting. Bring your recipes, she said, and your story. I flew out a week later with a duffel bag full of spice jars, handmade rubs, and a laminated prototype menu. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I told her the whole truth. The family betrayal. The stolen savings. The way I'd clawed my way out of a gas station town and built something from ashes. I didn't cry. I didn't plead. I just told her what I wanted to build and why. She looked at me across the table, tapped her wine glass once, and said, I believe you. Let's do it. Just like that. Suddenly, I had a business partner. A real one. Someone who saw me not as a backup plan or emotional safety net, but as a visionary. She wired the first round of seed funding that same week. Told me to scout locations in Nashville, Denver, and Atlanta. I chose Nashville, not because it was close to home, it wasn't, but because it was just far enough away to be free and just alive enough to be a blank canvas. I found a small, struggling cafe on the edge of the gulch that had decent bones, but no traffic. Made an offer. Got the keys. And just like that, the real work began. I didn't tell anyone in my family. Not Lauren. Not even my friends from the old smokehouse. This was mine. My rise. My rebuild. I didn't want applause. I didn't want sympathy. I just wanted the work. I slept in the empty cafe on a blow-up mattress for 2 months while I renovated. Tore out the cheap tile. Painted the walls a soft, burnt orange. Brought in handmade light fixtures. Installed a brick oven. Sourced local produce from farmers markets. Every night, I fell asleep to the smell of sawdust and dreams. And every morning, I woke up thinking about that wedding invite. About the way my mother had looked at me that night years ago, like disappointment was a given. About the way Rachel had posted honeymoon selfies while I counted change to buy paint. It kept me moving. Opening day was small. A soft launch. Just 20 guests, all foodies Nadia had invited. I didn't expect much. I just wanted it to run smoothly. By the end of the night, we had 2 new bookings, 5 glowing Yelp reviews, and a local food writer asking for an interview. The next weekend, we were at 80% capacity. Then came the social media attention. A TikTok about our smoked apple cider went viral. A Nashville influencer came by for the brisket flatbread and posted a gushing review. And then, Forbes called again. They wanted to do a feature on young chefs disrupting the South. My name was at the top of their list. I stared at the email for a long time. Not because I didn't believe it, but because for once, I realized I did. I had built this. I was the guy on the other end of the headline. Still finding my way. Still fighting. But no longer falling. I agreed to the interview. They sent a photographer. Shot me behind the counter, sleeves rolled up, sweat on my brow, laughing with my prep team. The article ran 3 weeks later with the headline, "From Betrayal to Brilliance. How Peter Foster Turned Pain into Purpose." And that's when the calls started again. First it was a text from my mom. Saw the article. Proud of you. Call me. Then a Facebook message from my aunt. You've done so well. Your mom talks about you all the time. She misses you. I ignored them. Then Rachel sent one too. A picture of her newborn baby girl with the caption, "Your niece. Thought you should know. We're naming her Callie, partly after you. Family's forever, Peter." I almost threw my phone. Not because of the baby, but because of the audacity. The way they kept trying to patch over years of damage with shallow sentiment. But I didn't respond. Because I wasn't done. Not yet. And then, 1 month later, Lauren called. Her voice was shaky. "You're not going to believe this," she said. She was right. Because what she told me next, that was the spark that lit the final plan. The thing I'd been waiting for. And it started with one name. Grandpa's will. "You're not going to believe this," Lauren said again, slower this time, her voice like the tight pull of a thread about to snap. I leaned against the kitchen prep table, pressing my thumb to the scar on my wrist where I'd sliced it deboning a trout 3 months ago, an old habit I'd picked up, grounding myself whenever I felt the adrenaline start to surge. "Try me," I said. She took a breath. "Grandpa left you everything." I blinked. "What?" "I mean it. The house. The land. His savings. Even the antique shop. All of it. In a sealed clause of his will. It only triggered now because Mom didn't report his passing through probate properly. She filed it late, probably hoping no one would contest the living trust. I sat down. Hard. I didn't even realize my knees had gone weak until the chair caught me. "Wait. That doesn't make any sense," I muttered. Rachel was his favorite. Everyone knew it. She was the good one. The golden girl. She used to sit on his lap and talk about her future wedding while I was in the garage helping him fix lawnmowers. Lauren made a noise like a laugh wrapped in a scoff. "Yeah, because she was performing. But you? You were actually there. Every weekend after school. Every time he got sick. You drove him to appointments. You remember his insulin. You knew what bourbon he liked. He noticed, Peter. Don't think he didn't." My mind raced, trying to piece together the timeline. Grandpa had passed nearly 10 months ago. I hadn't even gone to the funeral. I'd thought about it, but when I texted my mom about travel details, she never answered. Later, I saw one blurry group photo online. My name was never mentioned in the obituary. They kept this from me? I asked, though it was more of a whisper. "Oh yeah," Lauren replied. "Your mom's been handling the estate, or at least trying to. She thought the original will was void because of a 2016 revision that cut you out, but apparently Grandpa did one more revision in 2020. Sealed. Witnessed. Properly notarized. It showed up last week because his lawyer moved offices and finally processed it. She never saw it coming." I stared at the floor for a long time. "I own Grandpa's house," I said, almost in disbelief. "You own everything tied to the estate," she confirmed. "His land, the deed to the workshop, his vintage record collection, even the trust fund he set aside for home restorations. And the kicker? You've got legal standing to remove your mom as the executor because she violated probate code by concealing a relevant heir. That's fraud, Peter." It didn't feel real. It felt like someone had handed me a movie script with my name penciled into the role of the underdog turned heir. And then, like a flood, the possibilities hit me. I stood up, walked to the back office of the restaurant, and pulled out the small corkboard above my desk, the one where I usually pin new dish ideas or employee schedules. I cleared it completely, and I began to write. Names, dates, loose threads, weak spots. I wasn't thinking about revenge the way a villain does in a comic book. No yelling, no smashing. I was thinking like a chess player now. Quiet, intentional, 3 moves ahead. My mother had betrayed me, repeatedly. My sister had stolen from me and publicly mocked me. The two of them, drunk on entitlement, had built an entire narrative in which I was the selfish one, the ungrateful one, the abandoner. And now, I had something they didn't know I had. Leverage. But I wasn't going to rush it. I had watched them for years, studied the way they manipulated truth, how they used tears and selective memory like currency. That kind of power wasn't just taken down in one move. You had to bleed it out slowly. So I made a plan. Step 1, learn everything. I spent the next 2 weeks quietly working with Grandpa's old attorney, a meticulous man named Harold Bennett who wore wire-framed glasses and had a voice like gravel. He remembered me, said I used to draw pirate maps in the margins of his paperwork when I was little. We met in his office, and he laid it all out. The 2020 revision had completely cut my mother out of the inheritance due to a consistent pattern of financial manipulation and neglect. Rachel's name was never even mentioned. You were always the one in the background, but you showed up, Harold told me. He told me, if anything ever happened, he wanted the house and shop to go to someone who wouldn't sell it to developers or pawn off his vinyls for gas money. You were his guy. It wasn't just property, either. There were investment accounts, bonds, even a modest art collection stored in a climate-controlled unit under a pseudonym. The total value of the estate? Just over $2.1 million. I felt my heart lurch. Not because of the number, but because of what it represented. For the first time in my life, someone in my family had chosen me not for what I could do for them, but for who I was when no one was watching. Harold handed me the paperwork. It's yours. You just need to decide what you want to do with it. I did. Step 2, don't strike first. Let them come to you. They still didn't know. That was the key. So I waited. I kept quiet. I didn't change anything publicly. I didn't post on social media. I didn't show up with a lawyer and bang on doors. I let my mother continue her charade of being the executor of an estate she no longer had legal rights to. It was a Friday morning when she called. I stared at the name flashing on my screen, Mom, a name that felt more like a brand at this point. I let it ring. Then I picked up. Hi, I said flat. Oh, thank God, she sighed. Peter, I need your help. Of course she did. I've been talking to the county assessor's office, and apparently there's been some confusion about Grandpa's estate. Something about missing documentation, or well, they hadn't processed. It's weird. I replied. That's strange. I mean, they said your name came up, and I just wanted to clarify in case there was a clerical mix-up, or, I don't know, someone pretending to be family. You never know with scammers, right? I could practically hear her trying to smile through clenched teeth. Right, I said. You never know. There was a long pause. Anyway, she continued, the house needs repairs, and we were hoping you might help out financially. Just temporarily. Rachel's husband got laid off, and with the baby coming. You mean the baby that was supposedly named after me? I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. She laughed, weakly. Oh, come on, don't be like that. You're still part of the family. No, I said. I was a backup plan. There's a difference. And I hung up. Step 3, set the stage. A week later, I had a quiet meeting with a real estate appraiser, a historic preservation consultant, and a pair of local journalists, one of whom had been running a column on forgotten landmarks in our region. I let them tour Grandpa's property, the antique shop, the overgrown garden. I told them I was considering renovating the space into a nonprofit culinary center, a tribute to my grandfather's legacy, blending food, education, and community. It wasn't just a cover. It was true. I wanted to do something real with what I was given. They loved the idea, said it had heart. Then I sent a formal letter to my mother, through Harold Bennett's office, informing her that due to her violation of probate statutes, she was being legally removed from all decision-making roles. Effective immediately. That's when the mask shattered. She showed up at the restaurant the next day, something she had never done, not even when I opened. She marched through the front door mid-lunch rush like she owned the place, ignoring the host, beelining for the counter where I was slicing brisket. "You can't do this to me," she snapped. I didn't flinch. Already did. Her eyes were wild. "That house is ours. It's Rachel's. We were going to sell it and use the money to help with the baby and—" "Let me stop you there," I said calmly, putting down the knife. "You were going to steal from Grandpa one more time, just like you stole from me. You ungrateful little—" "Finish that sentence," I said, stepping out from behind the counter. "Please. I dare you." She froze. For the first time in years, she looked small. Not like a towering, disappointed mother, but like what she really was. A woman who thought she could gamble with everyone else's chips and never pay the price. "You don't understand what you're doing," she hissed. "No," I said. "You don't." And then, for good measure, I handed her a printed copy of the Forbes feature. The one where I talked about rising from betrayal, starting over, learning to choose your family. She stormed out. Rachel didn't call. She didn't text. She FaceTimed, which told me everything I needed to know. She wanted an audience. She wanted witnesses to her performance. I let it ring twice before I answered. She appeared on screen with messy, just woke up, hair, and that trademark face she used anytime she wanted pity. Lips pressed tight, eyebrows bent like she was carrying the weight of the world instead of the weight of her own decisions. "What did you do?" she snapped. No greeting. No hey. No how are you. Just instant accusation. "I followed the law," I said calmly, wiping my hands on a kitchen towel. "You should try it sometime." Her nostrils flared. "Mom is in tears. She says you blindsided her. You stole Grandpa's house." "Stole?" I laughed. "You mean the house you and Mom planned to flip for profit? The same one Grandpa explicitly left me because he didn't trust either of you." Her mouth twitched, an involuntary tell she still hadn't learned to hide. "You don't deserve that place," she said. "You weren't there at the end. You skipped the funeral. You abandoned the family." I leaned back in my chair. Funny thing about abandonment, it isn't when someone walks away. It's when someone gets pushed. "Don't be dramatic." "You're right," I said. "Let's talk facts then." I grabbed the folder sitting next to me, thick with documents. Fact 1. Mom unlawfully accessed a dormant savings account in my name and transferred nearly $3,000 to you. I have the bank logs. Rachel blinked. "Mom did that because she thought." "I don't care why she did it. It was theft. If you're going to throw money in my face again." Fact 2. I said louder. "You've been telling people I flaked on your wedding after promising to pay for the catering. I never made that promise. I have your messages. I have Mom's. Not a single offer came from me. That's not how it happened." Fact 3. I continued. "You lied about naming your baby after me, hoping it would soften me up. Her name is Callie because you thought it sounded cute on Instagram." She froze. Her silence was confirmation enough. "You have been entitled, manipulative, and reckless with everyone's generosity," I said. "And for years, I let it slide. I let you and Mom rewrite the narrative while I focused on building something real." Rachel let out a shaky scoff. "You think you're some saint now? You're just a cook in Tennessee. Congratulations." I smiled. "I'm a cook featured in Forbes. Twice." Her jaw clenched. I saw the jealousy spark behind her eyes, that familiar mix of envy and resentment she'd never been able to hide. She hated that I built something without her. Without them. "What do you want?" she finally asked. "Because clearly this is revenge. Just tell me." "Oh," I said. "Revenge isn't something I have to do. It's something you and Mom walked right into." She frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, "the fallout is already happening." And it was. Just hours earlier, Harold Bennett had filed a formal notice with the probate court. Due to her concealment of a legal heir, my mother had been removed as executor. That removal triggered an automatic review of every financial transaction she'd conducted under the estate's authority. Every penny spent, every form signed, every document delayed. Rachel's voice quivered. "Peter, what did you do?" "I told the truth," I said. "And the truth is, you two illegally used Grandpa's emergency fund to pay off the wedding deposit. The accountant found it. There's a paper trail. And because you were the recipient, Rachel," I leaned in a little, "you're legally responsible for paying it back." Her face went pale. I can't pay that," she stammered. "We're already behind on rent and daycare, and—" "That sounds like a you problem," I said quietly. Her voice shrank. "This could ruin us." "It won't ruin you," I said. "It'll humble you." Before she could respond, I clicked the button to end the call. The screen went black. That was step 1. Step 2 came 2 weeks later. The county posted its findings, public record. Word spread fast in our small hometown. My mother had access to protected account illegally. Rachel had knowingly used estate funds. They weren't arrested. It wasn't criminal, just civil, but the court ordered full repayment with penalties. More than either of them could realistically afford. And the family? The same cousins, aunts, and church friends who once whispered about me? They turned on them. Hard. Lauren texted me nonstop with screenshots. My favorite was from Aunt Denise. You stole from your own father? And from Peter again? Shameful. Another. I can't believe I defended you. He built his life from nothing, and you bled him dry. My mom tried reaching out. Long, rambling voicemails filled with half apologies and half accusations. I didn't answer. Rachel sent one message after another. Please talk to me. We didn't think it would go this far. Can we meet? Just once. We're losing everything. I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. Because every step of this downfall was carved by their own hands. All I did was put light where they preferred shadows. And while they scrambled, I built. Grandpa's house was renovated by the end of the year, restored exactly the way he always talked about. The workshop became a community culinary space, where kids from the neighborhood could learn to cook after school for free. His antique shop reopened as a hybrid food market and artisan store. I hung his old plaid jacket on a hook by the door. People loved it. But the biggest moment came on opening day, when a local reporter asked me, right on camera, what inspired me to build this place. I said, my grandfather believed people deserved second chances. I took mine. That clip went viral. A week later, the mayor visited. Then a regional cooking show filmed an episode there. Then my second restaurant location received 3 investment offers. Life, it bloomed. As for my mother and sister, they kept digging. Rachel's husband left her after the financial fallout. My mother tried moving in with relatives, but no one trusted her with a spare key, much less a spare bedroom. Eventually, they both downsized into a cramped 2-bedroom rental on the edge of town. Lauren said it was the first time either of them had worked full-time jobs in years. And here's the part that surprised even me. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel guilty. I just felt done. Truly, finally done. Months passed. Fall came. The Culinary Center hosted its first harvest festival. Hundreds of people attended. There was music, food, kids running around. Exactly what Grandpa used to love. Afterward, I stood outside the house, watching the lights fade across the lawn, feeling something warm settle in my chest. That was when an old neighbor, Mrs. Whitlow, approached me. She'd lived next door to Grandpa for 40 years. She leaned on her cane and looked at the house with a soft smile. He'd be proud of you, Peter, she said. You broke the cycle. I swallowed. I hope so. She patted my arm. Your mother and sister, they made their own mess. But you? You built something good out of the ruins. I didn't say anything at first. I just let the words sink in. Later that night, I stood alone on the porch, Grandpa's porch, breathing in the cool air. I thought about the journey, the hurt, the betrayal, the rise, the victory that wasn't loud or cruel, but calm and deliberate, carved through resilience instead of spite. Somewhere in town, my mother and sister were feeling the sting of consequences they believed would never touch them. Not because I pushed them, but because life finally stopped shielding them. And as I locked up the antique shop for the night, flicking off the last warm light inside, I realized the truth. Revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about removing yourself from the role they assigned you, letting their world collapse under the weight of its own lies. Walking away with your hands clean. I stepped outside, shut the door behind me, and whispered the last thing my grandfather ever told me before he passed, a line I never truly understood until now. Some people only learn when the world stops bailing them out. I looked up at the restored house glowing softly under the porch light, felt a steady peace rise in me, and finally, fully closed that chapter. Still finding my way, but this time on my terms.